Hello there everyone, it's Carol from the Crafty Emporium. Welcome to the channel. I want to show you today how I made these lacy layered envelopes. So if I just give you a little bit of a close-up. So it's an envelope on the back, and then I've covered the front in all sorts of different laces. So I'm going to show you how I do that, and I've also used a smaller version, I suppose, of the technique by decorating up some coffee dyed index cards, so you can get an idea of different things that you can attach them to give you different versions. So I'm going to demonstrate the envelope to you. Now what I did was I coffee dyed some envelopes, and I actually used as a background was I've got this pretty lace, I'll say fabric, but I've got this pretty lace and I got a peachy version and I got a gold version. So I'm going to do a gold version today, and I attach this to the back first and just find an end. There we go. So I want to cut this lace to be able to cover this front face of the envelope. So I'm just going to sit it underneath so that I can get an idea of how big it needs to be. I'm just going to cut it out roughly to start with. Now you don't have to do this bit, this adding the lace on the base of the envelope face, but the reason why I add it, if you can see here, this pretty lace doesn't cover the whole of the envelope up, and so if I lift that up you can see that it's got the lace underneath it. And obviously with most laces, because they're of a filigree type nature in that they're open weave, you can see this lace underneath it rather than looking straight the way through to the envelope face. Now you can use Fabri-Tac. Mine's gone a little bit gloopy. So I'm going to attach the lace with my Tombow glue by just placing glue around, I think my glue's starting to run out, around all four sides. Just clean the nozzle a bit. And then across the face of the envelope. So that will now be held in place, and I'm going to line it up with the fold line across the top there. Now at this moment in time, that glue is going to seep through. So I'm just going to turn it over, and from the back I'm just going to trim off this excess that's overhanging the edge. Rub the glue off my hands, and I'm using the Tombow glue as well because I know that it dries clear, so I know it won't sort of show through. I probably want just a bit more down there, but I am going to stitch this in place anyway, but you don't have to. Right, so I'm just going to put that to one side to just dry off a little. The next thing then is choosing what laces you're going to use. Now, because I'm doing it on a gold background, I think that I want to go for cream coloured laces rather than whites. So I've got this, you see that beigey one's not going to go with the gold, so that's no good. So we'll put you to one side. And it wants to be a variety of different widths of lace as well. So that pink one's going to be no good on gold, so we won't use that. I might use that tassel one on the bottom, maybe. Keep it out just in case. I've got that tea dyed one. We'll keep that one out. Don't want that one. Don't want the blue. Don't want my broderie anglais. So we'll get rid of that. Might use that one. Don't want to use that. Oh, I've got a cream one. Oh, I've only got a bit. So that's no good. Don't want that one. Don't want that one. See, process of elimination. Don't want the beady one. No. Don't know about that one, maybe. No. Discounting that one. Discounting that one. But I'm going to keep that one, and I'm discounting that one because it's the wrong colour. So now it's about looking at the laces that you've sort of narrowed down and thinking about the layers of them. So I want the slightly wider ones at the bottom. So let's start with this one. So I could do that, and they can overlap each other as well. They don't have to sit, you know, butt up next to each other. Don't want so much of that really dark, so that could sit on there, maybe. That one could go on there. Then we could have maybe this one, another little tassel effect. About that ribbon one. Let's take you off a minute. Maybe not have you there. So let's do that. And it's all a little bit trial and error. Have a play. There's no formula to this. It's what's pleasing to your eye. Yeah, I don't mind that. That's all right, isn't it? So I need to make sure that this now covers the depth of this envelope. So if I sit the envelope on top, so if I have a little bit of this overhanging just the bottom edge of the envelope, that's round about the right depth. Okay, so now I've chosen my laces. Let me get rid of those others out the way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit that on top, and I'm going to find where they end, so that they end round about equal, rather than having a full drop at this end and only maybe half a drop at this end. So if I position it like that, I've actually got a full drop at each end. Now I need to look at where I could place glue to just hold that lace in place, and so I can see that I've got a straight line here that I could place glue, and I could put glue on underneath this part here, and maybe even put some in the center of these flowers to just hold it in place a little. So I'm going to cut it off. I want to do it to about there. Now I've cut it slightly longer to start with, because I can always trim off the excess afterwards. Right, so I'm going to turn that over onto the back, and I'm going to place glue along that straight edge. a little bit in the centre of each of the flowers, and some across there in a straight line. And this is just to hold the lace in position. And I'm going to leave the bottom a little bit flappy so that it's got a little bit of movement about it. Make sure that I've got it at the right height. Okay, next was this one. So again, I'm just going to chop off roughly where that's going to end. Get rid of that one now. Flip it over. Add glue onto the back. So we're not gluing the whole piece of lace down because we want some movement in it. But I'm strategically placing the glue on the lace. So that can go on there. In fact, I might only need 3 layers. Yeah, I'm only going to need 3. Okay. Chop that and that off. If I move it down to there though, can I get that 4th one in? In fact, I'm going to move that one down. I'm going for the 4. Okay. Turn it over to the back. Add glue on the strategic places. So the slightly more solid areas. And again, it's just so as it holds the lace in position. I'm going to overlap that. And I'm going to cut that bit off. And it's a messy process, as you can see. You get glue everywhere. Okay, I'm going to add glue down that centre ribbon. On that bit of lace. That now holds all that lace in the right place. Oh, I'm a poet and I don't know it. Okay, let me just get a baby wipe and get rid of that excess glue both off my fingers and my table. Now it will take a little while for the glue to dry. But what I would then do is I would pull that flap back up and I would sew around all 4 sides and then go down the flap. Now you don't have to go down the flap, you could just do down all 4 sides to hold all the lace in place on the sides and on the top and bottom. What you need to be aware of though is because this bit is flapping, I've got this little flappy bit of lace at the bottom, I would actually need to push those out of the way or just pin them out of the way when I sew across the bottom, because I don't want my stitching to show over the top of those bits of the lace. So as I say, I would sew down the side, I would flip these little dangly bits up out of the way and then sew across the bottom and then sew up the side and sew across the top. And then if I wanted to, I would sew around the flap itself. Got a hair there. And that's exactly what I've done here. So I've just used dark stitching so that you can kind of see it. So that I've used the stitching down the side, across the bottom. I've avoided stitching down this part of the lace here at the bottom, stitched up the side and across the top, but I left the flap on the back on this one. I did actually just attach a bit of the lace fabric on the back and cut out an extra little piece to decorate on the back. This one I stitched with zigzag stitch all the way around, and again you can see on this bit, which is the same lace as I've used on this one, I lifted up those flappy bits at the bottom and just caught this bottom edge of the lace and sewed all the way around, and then sewed around the actual flap itself. So again, I would turn it over to the back and just carefully trim off those excess bits of lace that are overhanging the edge of the envelope. So it's still in a delicate state at the moment. And then I can get rid of those bits. So I then chose some seam binding. Let me just wipe my fingers again because I've got glue all over my fingers. And what I did with the seam binding was I folded it in half. Let me just measure how long that is. So I've got about 1 metre of seam binding. Now I dyed this seam binding, it was cream, and I've dyed it with Vintage Photo, I think. So I formed a knot, and then I formed a loop, so it's as though I'm making a bow. So that, I'm hoping you can see this okay, because it's all crinkly. So I've got my 2 loops are there, and then the 2 pieces that are hanging down here. So then I would trim off these ends to make it into a nice shaped bow. So let me just trim off those ends. So that one's looking a little bit raggedy. And then I took a bulb pin. So I've got a little gold bulb pin there. I'm going to try and find that sun. In fact, I'm going to use a brass bulb pin, I think. Do I want the tree? I'm going to put the sun on it, I think. It's got a slightly more vintage look about it. So I put the charm onto the bulb pin and then turned my bow over, and I added bulb pin by piercing the back knot on the seam binding. Now it doesn't always come too easily. There we go. So then I've got my bow. So that will dangle down the centre of the bow. Okay, so that's that element done. And then the third element that I like to do is I have a series of buttons already faux stitched, so I've kind of done some stitching through them already, and then I can add some buttons along the length of the lace, and then my bow will sit either in the corner or in the middle. I think I might go for middle. Let's have a look. Sit in the middle and attach some buttons either side. So I could do that. Now I've also got this bead trim on a rope, and so if I just move those out the way again, I could add some beads on there as well. So I would put a bead of glue down the length of the lace and then hold that on, and then attach some ball clips on the ends to just hold the beads in place, because they can have a tendency to spring a little. So I would actually put some ball clips on the ends of those to hold it in place. So let's get these in position again. Now what I would do is I would actually sew all of this first before you attach the likes of your ribbon bow and your buttons. And then I could put the beads across that centre panel there. That would look quite pretty, that, wouldn't it? Okay, I'm going to go off and stitch this, and then I'll come back and show you how I've put it all together. Okay, so I've stitched around all four sides, and I've avoided stitching these flaps down. Now it's up to you whether you want to leave these strings or whether you want to cut them off. I prefer them cut off, myself personally. Then I'm going to put some glue in the top up here, because that's where I want my bow to sit, and I'm going to put a nice big dollop on. So I want to make sure that I can get hold of all of that by, and then I'm going to sit that on there, and I'm just going to leave it sat for now, and then I'm going to put 2 buttons on this side, and 2 buttons on this side. And there we have it. I'm not going to tilt it. I'm going to try and keep it flat, because obviously I need to make sure that the glue sets. And so that is my lace decorated envelope. So those are the layered lace envelopes. And basically with the index cards, I did a similar thing, but instead of adding a background lace on, because obviously I want somewhere to be able to write, I just layered pieces of lace. So there's 3 different layers there. So there's 1, 2, 3 different layers of lace on this one. There's 2 layers of lace on this one, and then I got this green trim, so I added that one on the top. And then with this one there's 3 layers of lace. So there's 1, 2 with the blue, 3 with the little fringing, and it just adds a nice decorative little touch to them. Okay, thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you're all getting around to creating. See you again soon. Bye for now.